Chapter 10, Mishnah 4. This Mishnah begins by discussing the topic of the first two Mishnahs of the chapter, the strict Tahara standards that the rabbis decreed for Mechatas. As we have seen, as part of these standards, the rabbis decreed that even objects that really are tahor are treated as tameh with regard to Mechatas. If a person who is tahor for Mechatas touched an earthenware oven, the law is as follows. If he touched the oven with his hand, he becomes tameh with regard to Mechatas, because for Mechatas purposes we treat the oven as being tameh as a rishon l'tuma, which can transmit tuma to someone who touches it with his hand. But if he touched the oven with his foot or any other part of his body, he is tahor, because a rishon l'tuma can transmit tuma only through contact with the person's hands, not through contact with any other part of his body. The previous Mishnah discussed the law that Parah, duma, ashes, and mechatas become tameh if they are lying in a tameh place. Our Mishnah continues this discussion, using the example of an oven, which it just ruled is treated as tameh with regard to mechatas. If the person was standing on top of the oven and he stretched his hand outside the airspace above the oven, and a bottle containing mechatas was in his hand, and similarly, in the case of a pole that is placed on top of the oven, with both ends of the pole extending outside the airspace of the oven, and there are two jugs of Parah, duma, ashes hanging on the pole, one jug on this end of the pole and one jug on the other end. In both these cases, Rabbi Akiva rules that the mechatas in the jar and the ashes in the jugs are tahor. Although the oven is treated as tameh, the mechatas and the ashes are not considered to be in a tameh place, because the jar and the jugs are not lying in the oven, but are being held by the person or hanging from the pole, both of which are tahor. But the sages rule that the mechatas and the ashes are tameh. The sages hold that since the person holding the bottle and the pole from which the jugs are hanging are standing or lying on the oven, it is as if the bottle and the jug themselves are lying on the oven, which is a tameh place. Therefore, the mechatas and the ashes become tameh.